Hello, Internet. I am Pastor Recoil, and welcome to my parish. Today is the 18th Sunday after Pentecost, and we're going to talk about it. Welcome to Pastor Recoil's Parish, where I talk about some things in the Bible that you may not have heard about in church, either because it's not quite appropriate for all audiences, or it just isn't something that's easy to talk about in a sermon. Today's readings for the 18th Sunday after Pentecost are Jeremiah 29, 1 and 4 through 7, Psalm 66, 1 through 12, 2 Timothy 2, 8 through 15, and Luke 17, 11 through 19. Today, we're going to talk about what comes after suffering. Last week, I talked about the importance of acknowledging when we are suffering and sharing in the sufferings of others when they are suffering. But this week, the readings shift, and while they might seem like they're saying the opposite thing, I think they're actually just telling us what this process looks like. Because while it is healthy to acknowledge sufferings when we experience them, it isn't healthy to always live in that place of suffering, especially not for a long time. Now, I do want to say before I get into the content of this video, if you're having a hard time with things, if you've been experiencing sufferings that you just can't get over, things that you've been dealing with for a really long time, I can't recommend enough finding a mental health professional in your area. Friends are great to lean on, but eventually it is healthier to seek help from someone with the right training and experience. And as we're talking about suffering again this week and moving forward through suffering, keep this in mind. Seeking help is the strongest thing that you can do for yourself if you are experiencing suffering, especially if you're having a hard time dealing with it. We're here for you, but please find someone with the training and experience to help you through what you're experiencing. So that said, today in Jeremiah says something kind of strange. As the people are being carted off to exile in Babylon, as their home, Jerusalem, has been destroyed, they've lost everything, their homes, their temple, their government, everything is gone. The people are angry, they're sad, and they are suffering. But then Jeremiah says to the people who are going off to Babylon, build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons, give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there, do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. Jeremiah is telling folk who lost everything, make a home where you are going new. Yes, something terrible happened. We've all experienced this terrible thing together. But this is the reality that we're now in. The God who is with you in suffering is with you in this new thing too. Paul says it a little bit differently in 2 Timothy. If we have died with him, meaning Christ, we will also live with him. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will deny us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. If, as I talked about last week, Jesus suffers alongside us in the mystery of the crucifixion, then even more, we endure through our suffering into whatever's on the other side through the mystery of Jesus' resurrection. That is the other side of suffering. As important as it is to acknowledge and even share our sufferings, it is also important to move forward into the other side of those sufferings. As important as it is to spend some time in a place of anger and pain, it is just as important to learn to take those emotions that we're feeling and go to this new place. We have to, as Jeremiah calls us and as Paul reminds us, make a life in this new reality after the suffering that we've experienced. Now, this is something that Christians have been bad at, and very noticeably so recently. In the centuries of Christendom, Christians, especially European and European descended Christians, have been able to push their suffering onto others so that, well, those who look like me don't have to experience it. We make others suffer in order to make ourselves comfortable. But as the world changes, the people whom we have been mistreating are gaining a voice. And Christians have been reacting with pain and anger, not because we're experiencing this great suffering, but because we're no longer able to make that suffering cause someone else to suffer. Jeremiah doesn't call us into a life of passing off suffering. Jeremiah calls us into a new life. Jeremiah calls us to build houses, to get married, to grow gardens, to live your life, not clinging to the anger and the hurt of the suffering we experience, not just staying mad at a world that is not what we want it to be, but seeking to live, living lives of love, wishing good for the people that we think are causing our suffering, and continuing to, as Paul wrote, do the things of Christ, to love the world and its inhabitants, even as it changes around us. So if you want to see more content like this, check out the links to my right, or click the logo below my face to subscribe so you'll know when my next video comes out. Thank you for watching, and take the time this week to love your neighbor as yourself, especially if you don't like them all that much.